Welcome to the Veterans Impact Show, where our commitment is to help, hope, and healing of our veteran family and our nation. I'm Jim Blythe, a U.S. Navy veteran and a certified senior advisor. Join us as we continue the mission of leadership and commitment to our communities and our great country. Why, you never know where we're going to go or who you're going to meet. We invite you to join in, plug in, and share in what we do. This is your Veterans Impact Show.
Hey, we got a wonderful day going, and we got a wonderful guest calling in from the most beautiful place on earth, Coronado, California. And we have a day in Dallas that looks just like Coronado without the trees. I need to introduce...
And the ocean.
And the ocean, yeah. Trinity River won't quite cut it. But I want to introduce Cedric White. Many of you know him from Healing Thine Heart Ministries, as well as the marriage counseling that you guys do. They are the best when it comes to marriage counseling for veterans and active duty military. Done it all over the world. Amazing minister, amazing friend, and an amazing host to join me on Veterans Impact Show to bring a different aspect of everything. I want to say a special thank you to AUN out in California for carrying it on your 11 channels or your 11 stations. I want to thank the DBTV network for all you do, putting us on Amazon Fire, Roku, Spotify, smart TVs, and a bunch more. Look up DBTV. We are on Saturdays at 11 and Tuesdays at 7 at night. We are very, very thankful for all they do, spreading us around the world. Stay with us, join us, share. We do everything we can to help you with hope, help, and healing. Also, I want to thank Symbiosis Integrative Health for all they do in helping me stay healthy and helping other veterans stay healthy. Yes. Is we're with Fairway Independent Mortgage. Fairway is a company I work with, and my NMLS number is 311548. And thank you so much for Fairway, all you do. I want to say also that Healing Thine Heart's Ministry is one of our sponsors. Mm-hmm. So we've got a great thing going. Now, today, some excitement in the house. Attention on deck. Captain on board. Captain George Galdorisi, world-renowned author. Captain Galdorisi, my wife just corrected me. Sorry about that, sir. Welcome aboard. How are you today? And I can see the palm leaves blowing in the wind behind you. How great is that?
For having me on the show, and thanks for your staff, Jordan and everyone else for making this work. So I'm always excited to talk about books. Writing books has been my passion for decades. So ready to go. Thanks for having me.
I think it's exciting because let's back up just a little bit to let my audience know, because it's been 8 or 9 years since you came on. You were a helicopter pilot for about 30 years. You were stationed all over, and you lived in Coronado for a number of years. What was the most fun helicopter you ever flew? What did you like to fly the most?
Well, I love the H-60. Just for your audience, the Army, when they replaced the Hueys back from Vietnam days, came up with an H-60 Black Hawk, and it flew hundreds of thousands of hours. And then the Navy needed a new helicopter to replace ones that were 50s vintage, and it came up with the H-60 Seahawk, which was a derivative of the Black Hawk and very dependable because the Army had worked out all the kinks. So that was the most exciting aircraft I flew, and it's still in service today in 2025.
Well, yeah, I know. I got to fly in one in 17 in Norfolk, and also got to fly a cod. Now they don't take the cods out to the carriers anymore. They're using the Osprey. That has got to be exciting, but I think it was more fun to land in a cod. And of course, you with a helicopter, unless the deck was pitching pretty good, you didn't have to deal with the arrested landing or the catapult takeoff. So that had to be a little bit easier, right?
No kidding. It was much easier. When naval aviators talk about hours of boredom followed by moments of terror, the moments of terror are the catapult shot and the arrested landing. And I made many of those. And helicopters are a lot less exciting, which is a good thing.
Yeah, but you guys, George, sometimes, and I remember because I was with HC-1 on the Oriskany back in Vietnam. Sometimes you guys got called and you had to go out when the weather conditions were not exactly fun, and you got to go out and find that guy and bring him back. And I saw several of those rescues from a distance, the beginning and the end, and wow, what you guys did as SAR rescue pilots was truly amazing.
Yeah, well, full credit to the crewmen. I mean, the pilots just have to get to the location. The crewman is the guy who, in that bad weather or in those rough seas, has to jump in the water and rescue the person. So, yeah, a lot of fulfilling episodes in my career where these very courageous air crewmen got those people in the water.
Are some of the crewmen characters in your book? Have you taken some of those people and basically fictionalized them and used them? Some of the people you met?
Well, I think for most of us who write fiction, most characters are a composite of people you've met. So there may be someone like an air crewman, as you suggested, but then he'll have a pet like a dog which he didn't have, and he'll have a spouse which he didn't have. And so it's a composite. It's very rarely do people who read my books, are they able to, when it's not as much of a composite, are they able to sniff out, oh, is that who you're talking about? And I'm referring, for instance, to a good friend of mine who retired as a 4-star admiral, but I put him in one of my books, and people were saying, is that so-and-so? And I'd say, I don't know. It could be. So you have to, you have to keep the fictionized part of it pure.
And one of the exciting things is I've read some of your books. You are part of the writing team for Tom Clancy's series, and you've been involved with that a number of times over the years. That must be really fun to take those ideas and turn them into a great story.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. So I've done that with my writing partner, Dick Couch, who's a retired Navy SEAL and retired CIA operative. And I don't know if you recall the movie Act of Valor. In 2012. Well, Dick and I did the novelization of that movie, meaning the movie came out and then we wrote the novel. And because of that, we auditioned to join the Tom Clancy empire and take one of his series that he started back in the 90s, Op Center, and start it over. So it was really an exciting project, and we did 4 books in that series, and had a lot of fun doing it. The only unfun part was our contract called for 1 book a year.
Oh,
so
wow!
That kept us going. There was not a lot of rest. And to steal a phrase from The Godfather, we went to the mattresses to get all that done. But it was a successful series and had 3 New York Times bestsellers.
3 New York Times bestsellers. That's great. Hey, Jordan, let's put up Captain Galdorisi's website so people can see some of these. Duty and Honor, that's a great one. Coronado Conspiracy, I've got that one. Fire and Ice, I've got that one. Now, one of the things after we go through some of this, I want to talk about your brave writers share their secrets, because you are also a mentor to a number of writers. These are great books, and some of them are available on Amazon. Some of them are in the bookstores. Correct, George? How can people connect and get your books?
Yeah, all of those books are on Amazon, and ease of searching, someone just put my name in Amazon, those books would all pop up. And again, when you're ready, or if you're ready, the one I'd really like to highlight is my latest novel, Fire and Ice, because I think it's got some very contemporary impact.
Well, let's talk about Fire and Ice, and then I want to talk about the new book that you've also done, The Armageddon, because there you're talking about AI. But tell us about Fire and Ice.
Yeah, so the old saying is write what you know. So the first 2 books of that series Coronado conspiracy, it derived from my experience doing drug ops for the Navy. Was in command of USS Cleveland and went to the Caribbean twice. We arrested drug smugglers. We didn't blow them up, and helped stem the flow of drugs into the United States. Second one, for duty and honor, stemmed from my 5 years as chief of staff for a Navy carrier strike group, and was placed in the Arabian Gulf with conflict with Iran. And then I write about what worries me, and I've been worried, Jim, just through my working for the Navy, which I still do, about Russia. And I give you an example. When President George W. Bush met Vladimir Putin, he said, here's a man who loves his country and wants the best for his country, and I can, he said very flattering things. Bob Gates, who was CIA director and then Secretary of Defense, said, when I met Vladimir Putin, I saw a cold stone killer. And so this book is, so many people have reached out to me and said, how did you do this? And what I did is I basically predicted the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Wow.
And the plot line is, and I used Putin's name. I didn't use some made up Russian name. The plot line is Russia's in bad economic straits. Putin wants to divert his populace's attention from that. So what do? You invade a nearby country. And so I had him invading Belarus simply because Ukraine had been so overused by other writers, and cutting off the oil supply, and the United States gets involved, and the story goes on from there. I won't spoil it for you, but it really was, I wrote the book in 2000. It was published in early 2001, and then the Russian forces started massing on Ukraine's borders in 2022. So they say it's better to be lucky than good, but that was just a story that appealed to me, and it turned out to be, life follows art.
Very prophetic writing, wouldn't you say?
Most definitely. As I listen to you talk, Captain, my mind wonders, how did the experiences, your naval aviation experience, how did it shape, not just your propensity to write nowadays, but even your view on leadership and risk and what, the things that concerns you. How does that affect you?
Yeah, well, no, thanks for that question. So I love the way you teed the question up, leadership and risk. It was in Fire and Ice, it was risky for the United States to get involved in that fictional conflict in Belarus. But just today in the New York Times, there was a huge article about Americans fighting for Ukraine. And I commend it to you if you have time to read it. But the number that is pegged is somewhere between 1,000 and several thousand Americans are in Ukraine fighting for that country to protect democracy worldwide. So it is kind of another life follows art.
Wow.
That's amazing. One of the things I want to let our audience know, not only is he a honored Navy captain, helicopter pilot, served unbelievable service, but one of the things is today you are a director of strategic assessments and technical futures for the Navy's Command and Control Center of Excellence in San Diego. When you said you're still working for the Navy, is that what you're talking about? Because that title alone tells me you are heavily involved in what's going on.
Yeah, no, so I did 30 years, Jim, on active duty. I've been at Naval Information Warfare Center Pacific is the official name of the command. There are 15 Navy laboratories all over the country. We specialize in command and control, satellites, computers. I mean, frankly, we're geeks. We have hundreds and hundreds of people who go into a windowless room and write code every day. And that's to help our forces afloat win the information battle. So my specific role, since I spent 30 years on active duty, is when a scientist, and we have 5,500 employees, I think I said. So when a scientist or engineer comes up with a great idea, not all great ideas are useful to the Navy. So I really sort of act as an interpreter and a filter, if you will, to say it's great science, but not for the Navy. How about if we work on this, and this will be something else? So it's very fulfilling, because you don't want people to labor for years and produce something that's not valuable.
George, I didn't get a chance to get yet my copy of Algorithms of Armageddon. In the write-up of the book, it talks about AI, and this is a thriller about AI. Is that correct? And can you tell us a little bit about that book? Because it sounds fascinating.
Well, thanks, Jim. It's nonfiction, and my writing partner, Sam Tangretti, and I, this is something we're passionate about, because if you can't really pick up a newspaper or read a website that doesn't have several articles a day about AI. And so the way I like to phrase it is there's vastly more heat than light on the subject of AI in general. And you see things like there are congressional hearings trying to slow down AI development, et cetera, et cetera. And so, depending on your point of view, some people think AI is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and some people like Elon Musk think it's going to destroy humanity. So, Sam and I have taken all that aboard, but we wrote specifically about what happens when you insert AI in military weapon systems. Because the people who are skeptical about AI in society, they go ballistic when you even talk about putting AI in military weapon systems. So we tried to really clear the air and get rid of some of the hype in what we wrote about.
You know, one interesting thing, and I forgot to bring this up in the outline, there is a movie called War Games. And War Games came out, I believe, in the late 80s. And this is a movie about literally a computer doing a simulation and almost starting a war. So when we come back after these words from our partners, we've got George Galdorisi, Captain U.S. Navy, writer, best-selling author. This is where you need to be to learn about how to be a great writer. This is Veterans Impact Show.
Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Heart's Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
All right, welcome back to the second portion of the Veterans Impact Show. Cedric White here, co-host here with Big Jim Blythe, the man of the hour. And we are so happy to have Captain George Galdorisi. And Captain, you've had a great career. I want to ask you, if you're looking back in your career, what would you say over the 30 years of your military career, what was one of the most pivotal points for you in your career?
Yeah, wow, that's it's hard to unpack 30 years, but I'd say I had a commanding officer who was probably the best mentor you could have on earth. I mean, he needed to get the mission done. He needed to take care of his people, but for whatever reason, he took an interest in me, and he always gave me reasons to excel. In other words, if I was doing a good job, he helped show me how I could do a great job. If he thought I was doing a good job leading my sailors, he would give me what we call tactics, techniques, and procedures to help them in their careers. So, and I'm sure Jim had the experience in his Navy career of the same thing. You remember your mentors because they had the biggest impact on you, and the reason they had the biggest impact is they challenged you to be a better version of yourself.
Right.
Cedric was a guided missile technician, U.S. Navy. We are all three Navy veterans. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm third generation Navy, and my father and my grandfather were in World War II. So what you're talking about changed me.
Mm-hmm.
The people that took an interest in me changed me. My division officer, amazing man. Unfortunately, Leon's no longer with us. But I was given the opportunity to fly in the TA-4 Skyhawk, and I flew about 160 hours in 4.5 months out of Fallon, Nevada. And many of them were with Leon Bryant. And it was an amazing experience to fly with those guys, because I don't think there are greater mentors or greater men in the world than Navy pilots. Now, I know I'm prejudiced, but let me tell you something. They are amazing in the ability to focus, direct, improvise, do what you got to do to stay alive, and do what you got to do to get the mission. I think that's one of the beauty of the military. You ain't going to find that in the corporate world, correct?
No, not really. The corporate world is really a pyramid, and someone else's success is often the other person's demise.
Right.
Because people want to climb the corporate ladder. But I think, not to brag about the helicopter community, but Jim, as you know, with talking and working with Mark, we're a two-piloted aircraft. So you're sitting in the cockpit for a 3-hour flight with the senior pilot and the junior pilot, and there's mentoring going on all the time. And the TAC Air community, now that we don't have the Phantoms anymore or the F-14s anymore, it's just one pilot in that F-18, and you're kind of a solo person. So I think we get more serendipitous mentoring in the helicopter community, just because there's two pilots, a senior one mentoring a junior one, so he can become qualified to be the pilot in command.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because we were an A4 squadron. We got the latest, greatest new TA-4, which I got to fly in the back seat. And I can just imagine the first time you strap one of those things on and you're a young aviation student and you're by yourself. That A4 Skyhawk, they were by themselves. Same thing happens, I believe, with the F-35. And same things happen with some of the other aircraft. You do a lot of simulator, but babe, first time you light the burner and go, you're by yourself and there's nobody there to pull you out. That takes courage, but it also takes enormous courage to land on an aircraft carrier, whether you do it in a helicopter or with an arrested landing. However you do it, that thing from 3,000 or 4,000 feet looks like a postage stamp, doesn't it, George?
No, it sure does. And again, just to tee up what I mentioned earlier, it's those are the moments of terror. And my wife Becky got to take a COD flight out to a carrier once, and our children, just to be they're not really wise guys, but they're fun-seeking people. Just told her how terrifying it would be, and it wasn't that terrifying. So she was actually relieved that it wasn't like seconds from her death.
Captain,
no.
I was going to just ask, what do you think for new aviators coming into the military now, right? What do you think what's the most crucial leadership qualities are for them today?
I think being able to walk in other people's shoes, and as Jim remembers from his career as a maintenance person, I mean, everyone in a squadron, administrative people, maintenance people, they are enabling aviators to have the best job in the world.
Right.
And the aviators need to take pause and go, oh, these people are helping me do what I love. So, I need to know their first names. I need to know about their families. I need to, just treat them as as next door neighbors, not just say, oh, the maintenance guy did this. And he said, well, what's the maintenance guy's name? And, those are important things. So I think it's just walking in each other's shoes, people who might not have had the opportunity. They did to go to university and go to flight training and stuff like that. So yeah, it sounds almost trite, but it's not. It's just, we're all in this together. It's just, it's a little like in football where, a quarterback who's getting millions a year will buy extravagant gifts for his offensive line because he's keeping them from being squashed.
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of the same thing at a less financially fabulous level.
Well, I got to tell you, it was the greatest thing that ever did in my life. And we get together, the Saints of VA 163, every few years, and it is truly, truly amazing. So we're going to take a break in just a minute to be able to hear from our sponsors. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk more with great American naval hero, George Galdorisi. And his books are so amazing. We're going to put up that website when we come back. We're going to talk more about that. But there's a special book you wrote, George, that I would really like for you to dig into a little bit. And it's about writing, because I know a lot of veterans over the years saying, gee, I wish I could sit down and write about my experience in Vietnam. Gee, I wish I could write about my experience in this part of the world or that part of the world. We got to go places the normal American never sees. So when we come back, we're going to talk more with George Galdorisi, Captain United States Navy, author, best-selling author, and friend of Veterans Impact Show.
Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Heart's Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
All right, well, we are back with you with the Veterans Impact Show, and we are having a wonderful conversation with our guest, Captain George Galdorisi, man of the hour. He's done some great things. You and Jim, you guys make me feel like my little Navy career was sort of small. I was proud of what I did.
Absolutely.
But I didn't. I never got to go on an aircraft carrier. I never did. But I can live vicariously through you guys. You guys make it sound very interesting. Captain, I want to ask you in reference to the things that you see from a security perspective. We've talked about AI, but what do you see in comparison to when you were active and what you see today? What do you see as some of the largest security issues that we face here in the U.S. today?
Well, actually, I see it as AI. And just to walk this back a little bit, back up the truck, our peer competitors, China and Russia, who don't like the global order that the United States helped establish 80 years ago after World War II. And, they're doing everything in their power to upset the apple cart. So I firmly believe, and we talk about it in the book, that AI is really the biggest thing since the Industrial Revolution. It's going to change life as we know it. It's going to change military as we know it. The problem is, even though the United States has the best researchers and the best AI companies, I mean, you can name them all, Google and Amazon and Anthropod and all of those, China and Russia are way ahead of us. And here's why. China, as you know, has tens of millions of cameras throughout the country, and they're an authoritarian regime, and they know everything you do. When you get in the elevator, when you get on the bus, and they watch you and they score you. And it's called social credits. So if you're not, saying great things about the party and other things, you can't get a passport. You can't get into university. So there is no seam between the China's civilian world and the military. So the military has access to all this well-developed and well-tried out AI. So they're leaping ahead of us. in Russia, Russia is a demographic dumpster fire. Their population has declined to 144 million. It's in steep decline for many, many reasons. And so they have leaped ahead in developing robotic soldiers because they don't have enough soldiers. You see North Korea's helping them fight in Ukraine. So they've leapt ahead with robotics. So our concern, and Sam and I, why we wrote the book, is the U.S. needs to make developing AI more of a priority. And you all know from your Navy experience, Jim, if you got the A4, it's obvious you need a new and better plane, and you can define that and touch it and feel it. And Cedric, that if you need a new guided missile cruiser, what it's going to look like and how it has to be better. AI, you can't touch it or feel it. It's not in a military parade, so it's very ephemeral and something that sometimes goes in the we'll do it later basket.
George, down in Austin, Texas, several years ago, they started the Army Futures Command. And the whole idea was to be able to take new technologies and implement them into the Army within months, instead of it took anywhere from 7 to 10 years. You take a look at the aircraft we're flying today, they were on the drawing boards 10 years or so ago. AI is speeding things up at an unbelievable rate. And you, with what you're doing with the Center of Excellence in San Diego, you guys are probably looking at some of this going, holy cow. So,
well, yeah, we have a big stake in, and AI is really a catch-all term for big data analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, all three of those together. So at our lab, we have a huge stake in those areas. I can't tell you how many hundreds of people are working just on those technologies and autonomy. But yeah, we have a big stake in that. We're trying to push the technology ahead, and yeah, it's a challenge. But I think if we keep working at it, we'll get the military to be more focused on adapting to that. And yes, you mentioned the Army Futures Command. In my opinion, not to diss any of my Navy friends, of all the services, the Army is furthest ahead in looking out into the future to see what warfare is going to be like.
John Antel, captain, he was a bird colonel. He was a tank commander, Korea, very good friend of mine, written a number of books. Many of his books are not fiction, they're fact. And one of them was 7 Seconds to Die, which was about a very little known war in sort of I think that Middle East zone. I believe one of the two countries was Azerbaijan, and I don't know the other one. But he said it happened so fast. And when you talk about command and control, that was one of the first things they were able to do is take out their command and control center. So that left the opposing force helpless in many cases. And so there are so many changes in tactics, military today. And we're seeing, and I think Russia, for instance, has had some real awakenings about trying to fight in Ukraine. That thing was supposed to only last a month or 6 weeks, correct? And now it's lasted what?
3 years.
3 years? And I think that's just about bankrupted. And also, I have read, and please correct me, there's been 1 million Russians killed in the Ukraine. Wow, that's a lot to think about. Yeah. But do they just not care, George? Do they not care at all?
Well, when you say they, I really point at one person, and that's Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin said that the years ago that the breakup of the Soviet Union was the biggest geopolitical catastrophe ever. And so he invaded Ukraine because he feels that he wants to reestablish the Russian Empire as it existed under the czars. So yeah, he doesn't care. And one example of that is if you look at who's fighting in the Russian army, it's not Russian, it's not Russian nationals who live in Moscow or St. Petersburg. It's the people from Eastern Russia who are minorities, who are drafted into the Russian army, and they're the ones doing the dying. So the people in Moscow and St. Petersburg and other big cities the war hasn't come to them. So that's how Machiavellian he is. And again, the fact that he has to depend on a third world country, North Korea, to provide 10,000 troops to because he doesn't have enough troops, tells you something else about. So yeah, he doesn't care, and he's insulated the oligarchs and the people in the big cities from the war. So he's got no signs of stopping.
Well, maybe the Ukrainians can figure out some way to take the war to the big cities, and it might change a whole lot of opinions in a hurry. Who knows? What's next for George? What do you want to write next? Where do you want to go? Because I can't wait to read the book on AI, the Armageddon. What else where are you going now?
Well, my first love is fiction, Jim, and the two, Sam and I did 2 books on AI. First one was AI at War, and then this Algorithms of Armageddon was the second. So those were passion projects, things we really felt strongly about, and now I'm going back into fiction. And my latest project, which I'm tuning up before I send it to my agent, is it's kind of a locked room mystery. It's a serial killer on an aircraft carrier, and the plot line is aircraft carriers off India. Pakistan's invaded India. We're trying to evacuate Americans so they can't leave station, and one by one, people on the ship are murdered by this serial killer. So It comes down to a Naval Criminal Investigative Service woman, former naval officer, naval aviator, who's got to track down the serial killer before he kills anyone else. And it's a kind of a modern day Murder on the Orient Express.
That I wanted.
I like that. That one sounds interesting.
Okay, that would make a great movie. I bet you could even pick the actors and actresses to join in on that one. Mm-hmm. I bet it would be good. I can't wait to read that one. What do you think it'll come out next year?
Well, if you give my agent a call and tell him to hurry up and sell it, then I think that'll speed things along.
Yeah, send me his number, please.
George, let me ask you, how do you balance between realism and imagination? Because I know there has to be some gray in there. How do you balance that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So first of all, that it's you do have to. Well, let me back the truck up. So left brain, right brain. Not all of your listeners may be familiar with that, but left brain is, as I grew up in the Navy, is a linear naval aviator. One thing, and then the next thing, and the next thing, and it's very linear. Right brain is the creative part. So the reason I write is I had to use my left brain for 30 years in the Navy. And so using my right brain for novels is kind of very liberating. But to answer your question directly, you do have to imagine a plot. I've read so many books, science fiction, not that this science fiction, that you have to stretch your belief system to believe any of that could happen. And science fiction, it probably never happened. But it's like Ian Fleming, who wrote all the James Bond books, said. He said, and you remember those movies? They're somebody's hurtling down Hoover Dam or whatever.
Right.
He said, my plots aren't necessarily probable, but they're possible. So all of my fiction, military thrillers that I write, it could happen. Might not be happening tomorrow, but it could happen. So that's the imagination part, but I bound it in something that could happen. And then as far as the reality, the quickest way to have your readers abandon you as a novelist is to fake details. And that's why I self-constrain myself to write things I know. I mean, through my day job, I know a whole lot about Russia, and that helped feed feed, fire, and ice. But yeah, it's much easier to write what you know than if I woke up one morning and said, I think I'll write about an Air Force B-2 pilot. I have no idea where to start. I mean, I'd start with Wikipedia, but that's not very fulfilling. So yeah, it's write what you know and don't fake details.
Gotcha.
Now, you wrote a book for writers. Jordan, can you put up his website again, please, sir? And let the Braveship writers share their secrets. Tell us a little bit about that book, and we can get that as Amazon too. Is that really a how-to book, or is that what you did to relate that to us?
No, it's a how-to book. So first of all, Braveship Writers, there's a publisher here in San Diego, started by two guys, a former Navy guy, retired Navy guy, and a guy who graduated from the University of Pennsylvania. And they've got about 24 of us in their stable of writers. And so the book is not just what my co-author Kevin McDonald and I wrote, who is, by the way, Kevin's former naval aviator, now lives in Austin, Texas, and he went to UT, and so that's why, and he majored in journalism. So that's why we have I think we have all the big words spelled right. But anyway, how did the book evolve? So I'd be standing in, because lived in the Coronado community for decades. I've written a number of books and given talks, so people know I write. And so I'd be standing in the line at the supermarket and somebody said, hey, you write and I want to write a novel about this, or I want to write a memoir about my grandfather. And how do I get started? So I'd answer them the best I could, but it's a very ephemeral thing. So then I said, well, I can reach more people if I do writing seminars. And I did those for many years and had several dozen people attend the seminars and give other talks. And I said, well, I'm not reaching that many people. And so Kevin and I came up with the idea to write what we knew about writing and engage our other Braveship writers who had various specialties, mainly thrillers, but various specialties, and put that all in one book, which really encompasses, if not everything I know about writing, a whole lot. So yeah, the book's been out there a while. It's done really well, and I use that book as a resource for future talks I've given about writing.
I want that book for Christmas, Diane. I want that book for Christmas because I love to write. I took creative writing courses from Southern Methodist University. I did graduate, though, from the University of Texas, and that's a world all of its own. No doubt about it. All right, we're going to be back right after these words from all of our partners. We're talking with a great American hero, a great American writer, a man who brings action to life in a big way, George Galdorisi, U.S. Navy captain, author, all the wonderful things. Go look at his website, Galdorisi. Is that correct, George?
Yes, sir.
All right, .com. You'll enjoy it. We're going to be right back. And Cedric, I got to tell you, we've got a great finish to this show. Let's bring it into the dock, brother.
Let's bring it in.
Okay. Thank you for being on board. Thank you for being part of it. And thank you, George Galdorisi. And we'll be right back to finish up with Veterans Impact Show. We're here for you. Share us. We're all about hope, help, and healing. And writing that story may be healing for many of you.
Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Heart's Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation.
I'm having a great time because I'm sitting there looking out George's window at a palm tree, and I'm going, man, I love San Diego. Hey, Jordan, show that picture we found of George. I think he'll get a kick out of that. Look at that. Man alive. Now, when was that, George?
What ship?
What ship?
Oh, that was just 2 weeks ago. No, I'm kidding. That was my last deployment aboard USS Abraham Lincoln, the CVN 72. That's I'm standing in front of the helicopter I just finished the flight with. And yeah, that's, Jim, I'm 76 years old. I've had several careers, but I still identify as a Navy helicopter pilot. So thanks for getting that out of the archive, wherever you found it.
Well, actually, thank Diane. I think she's the one that came up with that. She's not only my producer and my wife, but my partner in putting all of this together, which is terrific. I got to tell you, it's also one of our favorite places in the world. If there is nothing else, and if Diane said to me, hey, you want to go spend a weekend somewhere? If Southwest Airlines got 2 tickets available, we're on our way. Because we love Coronado, we love San Diego and La Jolla, and it's just so beautiful. That in itself, I think if I lived out there for more than 6 weeks, I'd probably write a great American novel as well. How about you, Cedric?
I think that would be a great place to sit and contemplate and just write. I think so. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great?
Yeah.
It'd be nice to be able to set the world on fire with literary exactly.
Well, I think, Jim, they call Dallas the Coronado of Texas, right? No? Okay. Thought I'd try.
Could I have a talk with you later? We're not there here in Dallas.
Only on
Now, way back in the 50s and 60s, there were a lot of rich oil men from Dallas that spent a lot of time in La Jolla. And my dad worked for one of them, and he was chairman of the Del Mar racetrack. So I got to know quite a few of them. And let me tell you something. Everybody in Dallas wanted to go to San Diego for the summer. It was the place to be. Correct, George?
No, and just talking about Coronado specifically, it's really a small town America, and it's a great place to raise kids, because if one of your kids does something wrong and you don't see it, someone you know will. So it inspires good behavior.
Well, it is a small town surrounded by a huge city, surrounded by a huge state, but it is beautiful, as well as I would imagine many of the inhabitants there are former Navy veterans as well. And that's terrific. We're excited to be able to have you on board, George, and all that you do. Again, Jordan, would you please put up Captain Galdorisi's website? Because I want everybody to know these are great books. They're exciting. They're a lot of fun. By the way, do you like Maverick? Do you like those great movies that were made that are now? You can read his books and know all about it. You can read some of the most amazing things. And if you got a young man or a young woman who is kind of lost and doesn't like to read, get them to reading something like this. Tom Clancy's Op Center, Scorched Earth. Get them a chance to read something exciting. Get out of that iPhone and get into the book.
Yes.
And learn to read. Now, George, 30 years in the Navy. You commanded. You did a lot of wonderful things. What would you say to a young man or woman who says, gee, I'm trying to make up my mind what I'm going to do after high school, after college? What would you say to them?
Well, I'd say I wouldn't have stayed 30 years if I wasn't enjoying it. I mean, it doesn't mean every day was glorious, but I just think there's a thread of patriotism in our nation that may not be flourishing so much in the states on both coasts, but it certainly is in the rest of the country. So it is a way to serve your country. And I think, particularly for college grads, if they say, well, that's 4 or 5 years of my life commitment, and I'm not sure if I do that, I want to start my career. It's like, hey, with today's demographics, you're probably going to live to be 90 or 100. So take 5 years, do something exciting, and then start your career as an accountant or MBA or something like that. And I'll give you why I say that. And Jim, you mentioned the CODs, and now we have the Ospreys to replace the C2s. when I was a carrier strike group commander and we were local or chief of staff, local ops, every day we had one or two CODs come out with VIP visitors. And these were people who were CEOs of companies, who started companies. I mean, they were very wealthy, important people, if you will. And they queued up sometimes for years to wait for the opportunity to be flown out to a Navy aircraft carrier just for one day so they could see that. So that tells you something about people who are that patriotic that would want their kids to join the military. So I wouldn't advise anyone against it. I would, and now, not to tell you too much, I mean, we used to think of, Jim and Cedric, back in your days, a military person was some 19-year-old man who was buff and wanted adventure. We need those people still, but we need other people who are cyber experts and AI experts, and they might not look like Sylvester Stallone, but they are vitally needed. So I think people of all talents are needed in the military now, which opens it up to a vastly bigger demographic.
George, thank you so much for that. And I say, and Cedric says, the Navy was the best thing that ever happened to me. Cedric, let's close with a prayer. Let's start that, and then we can say goodbye.
All right. Well, Father God, we thank you for all that's been said today. We thank you for those like Captain George, who spent his time and still keeps his thumb on the security of our nation. Lord God, continue to bless, continue to watch over us and keep us. Keep this country one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you for being part of Veterans Impact Show, and thank you, Captain Galdorisi. We'll see you soon.